Welcome to the Wizarding Wireless Network podcast with me, AJ.
And me, Will.
Together we will be bringing you our no-holds-barred thoughts, opinions and detailed analysis on all things Wizarding World. So I beg of you, with that in mind, please do grab yourself a glass of fire whiskey and settle into this week's episode of the WWN.
So, welcome to the Wizarding Wireless Network with your hosts AJ and Will, streaming to you on all of your favourite podcast providers and on YouTube. On today's episode, we will be going through the next to last chapter, which is chapter 16, Through the Trapdoor.
Now, I cannot tell you how excited I have been to look over this chapter. It is probably my favourite in the whole book. There is so much that goes on. There is so much that goes on during this chapter. There is so many little nuggets of information that you get. It's just such a nice. It's like this is. Oh, I just love it. I love it so much.
It's all of the little pieces that you've been reading, and then it kind of like all just culminates into like one chapter. It's so good.
It absolutely is. Now, at the very beginning of this chapter, we then see the Golden Trio start to do their exams, and then as it gets towards the end of it, their last exam being History of Magic, and they are absolutely free. They are free. I'm going to say, I think this bit in the movie was actually fairly decently portrayed, I would say. I would, however, have loved to have been able to see the Weasley twins and Lee Jordan tickling the tentacles of the giant squid.
Yeah, I think the majority of the translation of like this first half of the chapter was good, but I would have liked to have seen some form of the exam.
Yes. Now, I wholeheartedly agree with you in that element. I do like the little comments, the throwaway comments that you do here in the movie that Hermione thought the exams were all right. Ron was like, speak for yourself. But I would love to have been able to see sort of that exam process, especially of, transfiguration, charms, potions. History of Magic, Professor Binns was robbed. Literally. He was.
I mean, give us a montage.
We have a full montage. What music would you put over said montage?
Rocky.
Just like a group of first years doing their exams and you've got the Rocky theme tune. Right, fair enough. Yeah. I must admit, I'm going to say I did prefer seeing the Rocky theme tune in the Spice World, the movie. Do you remember? Have you seen that? Yeah. Do you remember when they're running from the double-decker bus up the steps to the Royal Albert Hall? Yeah. That was good. See, it's funny about because the only thing that I can really think of in my head in terms of a montage music is the music, the Draft of Living Death from the Half-Blood Prince. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know why. But I'm getting very much ahead of myself there. Very much ahead. Anyway.
But yeah, like this first half, I think having not seen things like the exams and something that's missing throughout, like the majority of the films is like this whole end of year section is just completely missing from all of the films, I would say. Yeah.
And it's the same, I think, throughout the whole series, because every year they have end of year exams, don't they?
Yeah. And I think the thing is, like, for me, year 3 end of year exams, which we'll come on to, like, I loved the year 3 end of year exam for Defense Against the Dark Arts. But nothing like that in the films.
Yeah, nothing at all.
As we said, they've finished their exams and they've gone out and they are enjoying, well, Hermione and Ron are enjoying their now free time. They've finished their last exam. But Harry is still feeling on edge.
Yeah, very much so on edge, because now after his encounter with a hooded Voldemort in the Forbidden Forest, his dreams are becoming a lot more vivid. He's now starting to see this hooded figure in his dreams with blood dripping from it. And as a result of that, he is now starting to feel his scar hurting a lot more. Now, spoiler alert, this is going to be a prominent theme throughout the whole of the series, that this boy's scar will hurt. Just putting that out there. But this is when we first start to see it come into fruition, that the fact that his scar is hurting, danger is coming.
Exactly. His spider senses are tingling.
Yeah, absolutely. His spider senses are tingling indeed.
No, again, I think it's another thing that they kind of completely missed out. I think they caught up with it towards like Order of the Phoenix, but it's another thing that's really missing in the first film is these kind of premonition visions or kind of nods to Voldemort memories.
Yeah, certainly.
Even in the first book.
Yeah, I mean, certainly for me, because when you sort of think about it, back in Goblet of Fire, that's when he starts to have these, really intense visionary dreams. He almost starts to take on that Horcrux vision of Voldemort and Nagini at the same time.
Yeah.
But we don't see that at all, really, in Philosopher's Stone, Chamber of Secrets, Prisoner of Azkaban, until the very beginning of Goblet of Fire in the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a little something I think they could have put in, certainly from the movies.
Yeah, because it would have just allowed that kind of build up to it, whereas with the film that what we got was very much a case of nothing, and then suddenly Harry's having these premonitions, visions, and stuff like that, and it's like it doesn't make very much sense.
Yeah,
just being like, oh, it's a new power he has.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, absolutely. He's on edge. He's having these dreams. They're becoming more vivid. And he is now constantly worried that something is going to happen to the stone.
Mm-hmm. But for me, I think that's a bit funny, that the fact that Ron and Hermione aren't that nervous about the stone. They're really more focusing on their end of year exams, which, fair enough, I can kind of understand. Ron, I can understand if he would be so horizontal about it, but Hermione, I would have thought she'd have been very uptight about the whole thing.
It's very much a case of what happened at the end of the last chapter, where it was almost Hermione and Ron reassuring themselves that as long as Dumbledore's around, nothing can hurt you. As long as Dumbledore's around, the stone is safe. Yeah. I think that's where, in Ron and Hermione's head, that's where they're thinking. So they're kind of putting this like to one side, because it's like, well, Dumbledore's got it sorted. Yeah,
Dumbledore's got it sorted. No one's going to be able to get past Fluffy, because, Hagrid would never tell anyone. Or would he?
Well, exactly. I think we're now looking at really Hagrid being the biggest liability in the whole of this plot.
100%.
Like, I don't know, like, whether it's the books or the film version of the scene. I mean, they are pretty much word for word, this scene, and I love it.
Yes.
But it is the biggest liability being Hagrid. I'm like, you after a few drinks. Complete liability.
Exactly, you're anybody's. Do you know what I mean?
It's just the sudden realization that Harry has, and it's like he goes ghostly white at going, wait, how did Hagrid get a dragon? They're illegal.
Exactly.
So it's I think Harry's definitely very savvy, whereas Hermione and Ron are very much quite late to the party on this one.
Yeah, I find it a bit funny that Hermione, who prides herself so highly on her use of logic and skill, that she can logically work this one out.
I think the thing is, though, when you're reading through it as well, it just makes sense. I think when you're reading it through in that first instance, it's like, oh yeah, Hagrid just has a dragon. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, fine.
If anyone's going to be able to get a dragon egg, it's going to be Hagrid.
Yeah, so fine. Let's just crack on. I'm sure that's fine.
So I get what you mean with Hermione, like going, well, it's not logical for Hagrid to have a dragon or where he would get it from. But I think because that is just Hagrid's character and that's what they're used to with Hagrid, it's very much a case of, but that's just Hagrid.
Yeah. That's just Hagrid. And I guarantee you we will be saying that quite a lot.
Yeah, more of those lines, honestly, throughout this series.
Yeah, more of those lines. So, with this sudden realisation that the fact they don't really understand as to how Hagrid managed to get hold of a dragon, they then take the investigation to him. So they sprint all the way across the courtyard, all the way across to Hagrid's hut, and they have a little chat with him, and they say, exactly, Hagrid, how did you get this dragon egg? Some guy down the pub. Okay, but how? Why? What's the rationale? What is the logic behind all this? Oh, I don't know. But then...
we do get a glimpse that actually it is also the Hog's Head that Hagrid goes to rather than Three Broomsticks. And it's like, it just portrays, like, it's a hint that you don't really know what the Hog's Head is. You just know it's a pub. But just from this instant of Hagrid saying he's done like a dodgy back-end transaction in the Hog's Head, that's where like funny folk go.
Yeah.
It's not painting the best picture of the Hog's Head.
Coming off a little tangent here, have you done the Hogwarts Legacy quest with the portrait?
Yeah, the one that is in the Three Broomsticks and gets moved to the Hog's Head.
Yeah, it's up to you whether or not you want to move him to the Hog's Head or keep him in the Three Broomsticks.
I put him in the Hog's Head for sure.
So did I, because he was a prick.
He was. He deserved it.
He did. I was like, you enjoy that view. You can chill with Ariana Dumbledore and her portrait.
Exactly. At least you've got another portrait to wander off to.
Well, exactly. Chill out, love. But yeah,
I'm glad you and me are on the same page with that one.
Gotcha, for sure. So with this conversation unravelling as we go throughout, we then discover that Hagrid has accidentally let slip to our golden trio and also the hooded stranger in the Hog's Head just how to incapacitate Fluffy, and that is by playing them a little bit of music.
I shouldn't have told you that.
Shouldn't have told you that. Now, my question to you...
Best line.
Absolutely. My question to you here and now, what music do you think Hagrid was playing Fluffy to calm him down?
The tune that you have to play it in the Philosopher's Stone game?
Oh no, I'm just saying this in general. Like, what do you think?
Literally, when I was reading this, I literally had that kind of flute whistle, like...
Oh, yeah, right, I am with you. I was maybe thinking Hagrid on that flute playing a little bit of WAP by Cardi B. Do you know what I mean? Hoes in this house, there's some hoes in this house, there's some hoes in this house. I said certified freak. Oh, what a tune. I do not know why I like that song so much.
I'm just more intrigued of how Hagrid's playing that on a flute.
Well, to be fair, the man has got quite big fingers. To be a flute player, you need nimble fingers.
He can cover up multiple holes with one finger, though.
Exactly, but that does not get you anywhere.
True.
In flute playing, anyway. We digress.
So, yeah, we find out that Hagrid has let slip to the stranger and the trio how to get past Fluffy. Harry then gets this emergency sense of, oh my god, we've now got to tell Dumbledore. It's definitely Voldemort who was under that cloak. But where?
Are we sure?
Well, pointing fingers, not naming names.
Exactly.
We then figure out that no one actually knows where Dumbledore's office is.
Exactly. We don't really actually get to see that, do we, until Chamber of Secrets?
But even then, I don't think it's ever really, explained where it is in the castle.
Yeah. I'm just trying to remember because I'm pretty sure in the Order of the Phoenix video game, it was outside the entrance hall on the left-hand side.
Yeah. So it jumped around.
My mind was going off on a tangent there. I was just trying to think of this thing. I'd seen this thing on Instagram a couple of days ago, and it was that Salazar Slytherin had the Chamber of Secrets, but every other Hogwarts house founder had their own secret room.
Ooh.
And it kind of did make sense a little bit. So they said that for Godric Gryffindor, the headmaster's office, because they said so for every founder, they didn't have a set headmaster and you didn't really need an office as such. So they say Godric Gryffindor's secret room would be Albus Dumbledore's study, because it is literally guarded by a griffin door.
True. Okay. Yeah.
And then I think Hufflepuff, because they're all about helping others, Helga Hufflepuff made a room where if any student needed help, they could find it. And it would always be equipped for the seeker's needs.
Yep, so room of requirement, yeah.
And for the life of me, I cannot remember what Rowena Ravenclaw's one was. It will come back to me at some point throughout this episode, probably. So I'll put a pin in that.
Obviously, the trio are now trying to find Dumbledore's office, one of the secret rooms in Hogwarts.
Mm-hmm.
Only to find their path blocked by Professor McGonagall, who finds them sprinting through the corridors. Professor McGonagall then is very suspicious as to why that is. So Harry, getting more and more frustrated at the situation, obviously then name drops. We know about the Philosopher's Stone. Boom. It's in danger.
She drops the books that she is holding, absolutely aghast at how 3 first-year student Gryffindors are able to know what the Philosopher's Stone is, the fact that it's in the castle and that it is being well protected.
And again, this section of the book is so, maybe the kind of portrayal of this chapter isn't like for like, but the text, the actual script text of this chapter is pretty much verbatim of the film.
Yeah, it's pretty close, and I must admit I am quite happy about that.
Yeah.
The only thing I think at this stage it's different is just the location as to where the conversation takes place.
Yeah, and I think this is where I was thinking in my head when I was reading the chapter. I was like, this is why I feel like this part of the film is just feels really rushed, because this is meant to be after the exams, and then suddenly they go and kind of talk to people. They have a bit of chance to think it over since detention. Yeah. And then suddenly they're like, okay, no, now we need to try and find things. Mm-hmm. Whereas in the film, it's a case of they've got the detention, and then the next day they meet Hagrid, and then they immediately sprint from Hagrid's hut to McGonagall.
And then all of a sudden we're going down the trapdoor tonight.
Exactly.
And to be fair, I think the book and the movie are quite similar in this aspect, because there was no real in between. The only part of the book that was missed out from the movie at this section was the planning of the logistics of it, getting the invisibility cloak, the lead up to that, sitting in the Gryffindor common room, the fact that Harry said that he was going to go down the trapdoor himself, but Ron and Hermione are thinking, absolutely not. If we get expelled, we'll all do it together. And Hermione then starts to, of course, go through all of her books to try and come up with a way to help them when they get down to the chamber. But I think the marrying up of the book to the movie, it was pretty good.
Yeah. I must admit, there was one line in this that I wish we had gotten to see, and it's their kind of scheming and planning of how they're going to track down and follow Snape.
Yeah.
So getting Hermione to wait outside the teacher's office to make sure that she can track where Snape goes. Yeah. And it's the whole thing of, well, Hermione, it's obviously going to be you. You better do it. Why me? It's obvious. You can pretend to be waiting for Professor Flitwick.
Yeah.
Professor Flitwick, I'm so worried. I think I got question 14B wrong.
I do like that bit.
It's the whole thing of just like, oh, shut up. But
Yeah.
yes, I agree with you. It makes complete sense.
Yeah.
And I just wish there was more interactions with the trio within the film. Like that.
Like more of that banter.
Exactly. It makes them feel more like friends.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like no divide between them. It's just so nice.
Yeah. After that plan quickly goes out the window because Hermione suddenly realizes that the plan got sidetracked. Snape's gone off. And they have to go down the trapdoor now.
Yeah. Jumping down that trapdoor. But before they go down that trapdoor, they find their path blocked by a pajama wearing figure.
Neville finally standing up to people.
And we love to see it.
Just not to the trio.
Yeah, to be fair, it was like he understood the brief a bit too seriously. You know?
Yeah. Bit too literal, Neville. Come on. Like,
I know.
They were talking about the bullies who are bullying you, not the people who are meant to be your friends.
Exactly. But then we get the infamous Petrificus Totalis scene, which I absolutely adore. However, every time I watch that, and even now that I read it, I just keep thinking that must have hurt so badly.
Honestly, falling flat. Like, it's worse than the book because he falls flat on his face.
Exactly. He must have broken his nose.
Yeah. Like, being Petrificus Totalis, having, like, all of that locked up, it doesn't make you invulnerable.
Yeah.
So you're going to fall flat on your face. You're going to break your nose. You're going to have concussion. Like, he's lucky he didn't, like, whack his head on the side of a coffee table.
Yeah, exactly. But then I keep trying to think, if it was a full body binding curse, see, this is where my mind goes. If it was a full body bind curse, did everything else freeze? Like, I don't imagine his breathing would freeze. Like, his respiratory system would keep going, the central nervous system. But it's just...
Yeah, I think it's definitely body. Because it does say about his eyes still moving. So he's kind of like frozen, kind of watching all of them, like his eyes just like boop, 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 boop.
Okay, well, fair enough.
So yeah, you've got Neville, bless him, trying to stand up to them. Goes horribly wrong. Hermione obviously gets the better of him.
She does, quite easily.
They feel instant regret for having to do that with Neville, which I must admit is very sweet of them.
It is. It really is. It is very sweet of them. But you know what? At the end of the day, they get 10 points. Neville gets 10 points to Gryffindor for that. And he wins them the House Cup.
Exactly. He wins them that House Cup by doing what he did.
He does. He absolutely does.
Now, interestingly, on their way to the third floor corridor, they are met with a few obstacles. So, Mrs. Norris and Peeves.
Yep.
Again, we then find out about Peeves's affinity to the Bloody Baron. So we talked about this actually in one of our other episodes, which was to do with the Hogwarts ghosts.
We did.
And how the only person who can control Peeves is the Bloody Baron. And actually, I don't really understand how Harry knew to do this.
I'm not too sure myself, actually.
Have I overlooked? Have I missed something that I should have paid more attention to in this book, where Fred and George mention it?
No, I don't think so. I mean, sir, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
I'm really trying to think how Harry would know that, but I mean, luckily he does.
Yeah, for sure.
Otherwise, they would be quite stuck.
They'd be screwed.
So they managed to get past Peeves by pretending to be the Bloody Baron. And finally, they get to the third floor corridor door.
They certainly do. They eventually arrive at the third floor corridor, where they are met by one three-headed dog and one tiny, tiny little harp.
Ba-ding.
Ba-ding.
Now, interestingly, the difference between the film and the books is the fact that when they get through the door, the harp is not still playing.
Yes, I did notice that.
Whereas actually the three-headed dog and Fluffy is actually awake and moving.
Yep.
But Harry managed to grab something that actually was a present from Hagrid, which was the flute.
Do, 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 do.
Which again, it's that, like we said at the beginning, it's all of these little pieces that have happened throughout the rest of the book. It's all culminating together. So it's the whole thing of like, this was actually one of his Christmas presents that actually has got complete context and meaning.
Yeah.
Later on in the books. And without that Christmas present, they wouldn't be able to do anything.
It's like without this little thing, this little flute, then they'd be essentially kind of screwed.
Yeah. So Harry starts playing the flute. God knows where he got flute lessons from, because the flute is not the easiest thing to play.
No, it is not. I can attest to that.
Only for them to open the trapdoor to a tunnel of pitch black darkness.
Yes. Now, I must admit, I don't really know if so much it would be bravery or just insanity that would cause you to jump that far down into a black hole that you don't know what's at the bottom of it. Clearly, they had not learned Lumos at this stage.
Lumos or Arrest the Momentum.
Yeah, that's the one.
So they've got no way of cushioning their fall, no way of seeing where the bottom is. This could be like 1,000-foot drop.
It could be, but you know what? They just thought, let's go, yeet.
So Harry self-sacrifices himself because at this stage he's like, well, fuck it. If I don't do this, Voldemort could return to power and we're all doomed.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, in for a penny, in for a pound, let's go.
Exactly. So he yeets himself down the trapdoor, passes the flute to Hermione, who, again, just knows how to play a flute. Ron soon after joins Harry, and Hermione lastly joins after being chased into the trapdoor by Fluffy.
They do. But what do they land on, Dearest William?
They land on some plants, but they don't know quite what.
No.
It's not until Hermione suddenly realises what they've landed on. And I cannot believe how well this is depicted in the films.
Yes, absolutely.
And so first and foremost, it is Devil's Snare that they land on, which is cushioning their fall. But the room is slightly different in the books to the film. Now, in the books, how I kind of pictured it from the description is you've got the trapdoor above you, you go straight down, and then you've got like Devil's Snare kind of growing down the sides into like a bed.
Yeah.
But then off to one side, it kind of trails off and you're left with just a kind of dungeon room.
Yeah.
Rather than kind of what happens in the film where they fall onto it and then go through another layer. Hermione cleverly works out that it is Devil's Snare. Meanwhile, the boys are being slowly choked to death.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favourite lines, I think, in this whole book is actually here.
Is it?
Actually, yeah, and this bit. And it's, what was it? So it's when they're in the Devil's Snare, and then Hermione's trying to work out, she said, it likes the dark and it likes the damp, and then Harry says, so light a fire, and then Hermione says,
but
yes,
there's
of course,
no wood.
But there's no wood, and Ron's like, are you a witch or not?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I forgot I was. Lol.
To be fair, I read that over like 2 or 3 times and it made me chuckle like every time. And I think it even follows through to the whole thing of like Harry saying, lucky you pay attention in herbology, Hermione. Yeah, and lucky Harry doesn't lose his head in a crisis. There's no wood. Honestly.
But yeah, love that bit. Absolutely love that bit.
So yeah, again, we don't get a spell at this point either.
No, we don't.
So it's not Lumos that she casts in the end, it's the Bluebell Flame, and we are yet to figure out what that spell is.
Yeah.
Interestingly, the solution is slightly different from the books and the film.
Yes.
We then, of course, go into the next room, where they are met by some birds with glittering wings.
They are. Now, in this edition of the book, which I have been reading in, it's the Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone Enhanced Edition, which is available on the iBook store. You should see the illustration that is in front of me for this. It is absolutely gorgeous. Every single key is a different metal, it's a different shape, different size, but the wings on the outside of the key are gorgeously coloured. They are all different colours. And it's whereas in the films, you just get to see that one iconic shape.
Mm-hmm.
But in the books, it's very different.
Because there's been multiple different iterations of this being depicted. So I think for me, the first kind of iteration that I ever had was from, the old merch that we've talked about previously.
Yeah.
My first iteration was of the old merch style of Harry chasing all of the winged keys. Mm-hmm. And it's just like this vibrant, colourful picture with, I think, literally like they look like parrots. The keys look like parrots at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they've all got different colours. They've all got different shapes to them. They're all different metals.
Yeah.
But you've got the trio all kind of like fighting over them.
Yeah.
But I think I've just found your picture that you were talking about. And it's like rainbow wings.
Yeah.
This huge kind of like vaulted like cavern room.
Yeah, they're absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. It is such a good picture. So yeah, interestingly, we actually see all three of them get onto broomsticks at this point.
Yes, we do.
Whereas in the films, and I think this is where the Lego games had a bit of fun with this, we only ever see Harry and Ron ride a broomstick. Hermione never touches a broom in her life.
No, I don't think so. Certainly not at least until Deathly Hallows.
Yeah, that's the only time we see her ride a broomstick.
Yeah.
And quite competently, I might add, actually, because she manages to fly it and still cast spells from a broomstick.
Yeah.
But actually, she can fly a broomstick in the books. It's just, I think in the films, it's just kind of like written off that Hermione just never touches the broomstick because she's too book smart. And the Lego games took that one step further by, if you get Hermione to go on a broomstick, she's just bucking around aimlessly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is hilarious to do. But it just, I don't know. I like the fact that they work again as all three of them.
Yeah.
Because it makes it makes the room more of a challenge if they've all had to work together. Whereas in the film, it's just Harry kind of chasing it. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Like, it just makes it seem harder.
No, I get what you mean, because I think as well, certainly for me, whenever I was watching the movie the first time, and I imagine in fact the whole way right up until now, whenever I watch movies, all the flying keys, they just fly, they fly at you instead of you flying at them. Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes more sense for them to dart away from you because they don't want to be caught.
No.
You should be flying in every direction is keys parting waves like a fucking Red Sea. Exactly.
But that's completely not the case, as we know.
No. So they managed to catch the key in, what is seemingly a quite quick succession, because I know we said this is very kind of action-packed, but it really happens fairly quickly as well. We're kind of flying through these rooms in this chapter. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's more than 2 pages per room.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't even think that. Yeah, it's not that long at all, certainly in the books anyway, because I mean, I think whenever it translates over from the books to the movies, it's such a short space of time, but it is in the book as well. I think if you had this scene in The Order of the Phoenix, say, that'd be like 5 chapters worth.
Oh, absolutely.
It would literally have just been like written out.
It would have been a chapter per room.
Exactly. Take notes for the episodes.
Think Department of Mystery, but as the Philosopher's Stone chambers.
Yes, absolutely. Which I would love to see. I sincerely hope that in the TV show they do keep in the potions room.
Honestly, I was thinking this the whole way through reading this. I was like, okay,
if they're
doing the remake, we need every room, because the idea is it's every teacher has a room that's guarding the stone.
Yeah, like we were severely robbed.
Show us the rooms.
Show us the rooms.
So they manage to get the key, they get through the door, and where do they find themselves? Because this is probably your favourite out of all of them.
Yes, they're in the middle of the chess set, in the middle of the chessboard. And I love this bit in the book compared to the movies because you get a lot more personality from the chess pieces. Yeah. So like, as you go throughout the whole, chess game, Ron takes the place of the knight. The knight leaves the board.
Yeah, it's not like they're filling in the empty spaces. Yeah,
it's like Ron is not riding that knight piece. He is the knight. Hermione takes the castle. Harry takes the bishop.
Yeah, like how Harry and Hermione are depicted in the films is how they are in the books.
And this is what I absolutely love about it, because every single room that the Golden Trio face here, every single one of them have to play to their own strengths.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Hermione and Harry could never have gotten through that chessboard without Ron.
Yeah, exactly. Like they even mention the fact that, okay, what do we do? It's obvious we have to play our way across the room. And he says, now don't be offended or anything, but neither of you are good at chess. And Harry very quickly goes, oh, we're not offended. Just tell us what to do.
Yeah.
Like they know exactly where their strengths are, what they're good at, what they're not good at. And they've identified that this is something that Ron is very good at.
Yeah, exactly.
Let him lead.
Let him lead. Lead him. Let him lead. I love this bit because even though it is quite sad, you, for one, get that epic line delivery. Once I make my move, and you're free to get the game. Ron, no. Iconic, but the thing I love about this is the fact that Ron is willing to sacrifice himself for his two friends and for the greater good. A lot of people, I think, sleep on Ronald Weasley, but Ronald Bilious Weasley is a king.
It just proves that he's in the correct house. Like, this is bravery 101.
Personified.
Now, we kind of mentioned this in one of the other episodes, and it wasn't that far back, was the chess pieces themselves and the design of the chess pieces.
Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous.
Honestly, I think what we got in the films was stunning.
It was. And the thing is as well, I would never detract that away from the films because they're gorgeous, but I am loving seeing everybody else's interpretation of them.
Yeah, that concept art that you showed me.
Gorge.
Beautiful. Like if that was coming towards you and you've got the queen like dragging people off the chessboard, if that was what was doing it, I'd be running out the back door. Exactly, you'd be absolutely terrified. I think the description though in the books is very different from what we get in the films in terms of these are people. They are genuine people, but without faces. Yes. So whereas the chess pieces that we get in the films are very much like headless people. So they've got the armor on, but there's nothing kind of underneath the armor. Whereas what the concept art was then going for was very detailed, very kind of like, these are people. In the books, it's very minimalist.
Yeah, and it's a vibe. It really is a vibe.
It's so good. Like, you get, considering these rooms are no more really than like 2 pages long, you get so much detail out of this.
Yeah, it really doesn't leave a lot to the imagination.
No, I think it goes hand in hand with like the really well written chapters. The fact that you can get so much out of this chapter, out of 2 pages, and you've got an entire image in your head.
I love it. I absolutely adore it.
Yeah, me too. Honestly, like, this is probably one of my favorite scenes in the film, and probably the best bit in the book.
Mm-hmm.
I think the bit that they get really surprised about is when they first start losing pieces. Now, again, it's slightly different in the books to it is in the films, where it's not a purposeful sacrifice to find out. It's not until one of their chess pieces actually gets taken that they're completely oblivious up until that point.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they are petrified by what they see.
Yeah, they see a lot.
It's traumatizing.
It is. It absolutely is. But poorest Ron sacrifices himself.
It does, and gets dragged off to one side.
The thing I love about this, right, is the fact that they literally just see Ron get like taken off, but you don't get that bit in the movie where they go and they have that little emotional moment. They're gone. They're just gone throughout the door. Ron's like lying there in a heap, and they're like, bye.
To be fair, what I quite liked though is they have that emotional moment with Ron before he does the sacrifice. Exactly,
yeah.
It's like, it's chess. That's what has to happen. Do you want to stop Snape or not? Like,
yeah.
If we don't hurry, he'll already have the stone. There's nothing else for it.
Yeah. So like, we may as well just do it. Let's go. Bye-bye.
I mean, it is quite funny when Harry and Hermione then go through the door and they look back and he's like, and Hermione's just like, what if he's thinking like, if he's actually like dead, like bleeding out subdural hemorrhage at this point. Mm-hmm. And Harry's just like, he'll be all right, I think.
Let's not think about it too much. Let's just keep going.
So they now try and, after like putting Ron to one side, they then try and work out what's next. So Hermione starts breaking down who they've approached. So we've had Sprouts as a Devil's Snare, we've had Flitwick, and we've had McGonagall.
We have.
So that leaves Quirrell and Snape.
Yes. Now, Professor Quirrell's attempt, shall we say, I would say it's a bit feeble.
Honest to God, it is like red flags to Dumbledore going like, if he didn't know who Voldemort was infiltrating, he did it after this. Yeah,
I mean, it's just a troll.
It's a troll.
That's it. Look, that is it.
Defense against dark arts, and you pick a troll.
He's defending nothing. But then, after that, we then get to see Professor Snape's edition, and I am obsessed with this. I am absolutely obsessed. And I feel like we were robbed exceptionally.
So much.
Beyond belief.
It just proves how smart, like, Snape actually is.
Yeah. Do you know, see, the thing is, I've got a lot of opinions on Snape as a character, but the more and more that I keep watching these movies, Alan Rickman's portrayal of him is insanely good. And also, he's just a genius.
Honestly, it is just like the role was made for him.
It really was.
Like, I know it literally was. Like,
well, yeah.
But it, honestly, I do not envy the person who's having to play Snape in the TV show.
No, because it'll be an impossible task to try and live up to him. What was your favourite of the tasks that they had to do?
None of them. I probably would have died. Like, I think the thing is, like, the Devil's Snare is a fun one.
Fun?
well, you know what I mean. Like it's kind of like it's not too difficult. It's very practical in where it's placed, and yet still kind of has a bit of like danger to it.
Yeah.
Chess, I probably would have died. I pretty much lose at chess every time. The keys, I probably wouldn't have been able to catch them. Hand-eye coordination, flying on a broomstick, probably not the thing for me.
Yeah.
And then the potions riddle.
Yeah.
No matter how many times I read that riddle, I'm still kind of going, which one is it?
Exactly. It is still a bit of a tricky one for me, I won't lie.
Like, do you remember when they had it on Pottermore and they had the table, and as you went through the book, you then had to work out the riddle. You had to pick the potion to get through to the next chapter. And I'm literally sat there kind of going, oh my God, which one is it?
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. For me, it'd be impossible. I'd be like, I give up. I'll just walk into the flame now. Goodbye. What about you then?
Yeah, I mean, I think I certainly enjoyed reading the most about the chess pieces and also the potion, but I think I would be kind of screwed because it would take me forever to do the logic side of that.
Yeah. Like, I'd need pen and paper, like sit down, maybe give me an hour and I might be able to work it out.
Yeah, exactly.
But thankfully, they have Hermione.
They do.
Who Harry looks over to find that she is smiling. As she said, it's not magic, it's logic, which wizards haven't even got an ounce of. So basically like normal people and common sense.
Yes, I was going to say it's that old adage, isn't it? It's all brains, no common sense, and vice versa.
Yeah. And again, it's a very nice hint to Hermione being not only book smart, but very logical. She can actually reason with things.
Yeah, she's absolutely phenomenal. The brightest witch of her age.
Now, obviously, given that it takes her a while still to even figure out which bottle it is, we then have a really nice interaction with Hermione and Harry.
Yeah.
Which is very similar to what we get in the chessboard. And again, it's really frustrating that this all happens in the chessboard and Hermione's left with Ron.
Yeah. But then it makes me wonder, did she lob him over the back of her broom and then fly him up out that trapdoor?
Just Wingardium Leviosa him. Just whoosh.
Literally, I know.
Slingshot him out.
Yeet.
I don't know whether I definitely prefer it in the books where they have, like, the potions room is the thing that separates them, rather than it being Hermione's choice to stay with Ron. Like
Hermione, she has, the pastoral care duties, whereas Harry gets to run on through the flames and see who's at the other end. He's expecting to see none other than Professor Snape and Voldemort, but it was neither of them. And we'll leave you with that till next week.
Exactly. We're not got no spoilers here.
Even though we've probably said it a lot.
Yeah. And if you don't know by now, I mean, come on, like, it's been a while.
What are you doing with your life?
So, yeah, I do love the end sentence to this chapter. So he goes into the chamber. There was already someone there, but it wasn't Snape. It wasn't even Voldemort.
So then you think, who is it?
And you're like, it's just Dumbledore.
Could you imagine? But yeah. So that is where we are at when it comes to the Philosopher's Stone. So we have got one more chapter.
Yeah. We're nearly done with the Philosopher's Stone.
I've enjoyed it so far.
Yeah, me too. It's definitely been fun rereading this because I think these are definitely I definitely have favourites. So I typically reread certain books out of the series and not others.
Yeah.
So actually, I'm one of the weird ones who I can jump around because I know the plot of them. I don't need to read everything in order.
Which is fair enough.
So I think everyone kind of freaks out when I'm like, oh yeah, no, I just read like book 5 and then maybe I'll read like book 6 and then 2.
Mm-hmm.
It's whatever I kind of feel like picking up.
Which is fair enough.
But yeah, we've got one more chapter left of The Philosopher's Stone, and that kind of wraps. So we've got 1, 2, 3 more episodes left of season 1.
We do. And with that being said, next week we are going to be talking to you about, well, the man with 2 faces, the one and only Professor Quirrell Quirrell.
Yeah, no spoilers here.
Yeah. But c'est la vie.
So yes, we are going to be talking about Professor Quirrell and why he stutters so much. Ooh.
Indeed. But we will not get into that in too much detail until next week. So with that in mind, I am going to say to you a cherry bubbles this evening.
Yes, thank you, AJ. And thank you for listening to this week's episode. As always, keep your radios tuned in for next week's episode. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe down below to our podcast to see our lovely faces every week, and favorite the podcast over on your podcast provider to make sure you never miss an episode. And if you want to check out these 2 episodes over here, to go back and rewatch any of the other episodes that you may have missed. But otherwise, other than that, we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Kindest regards.
Cherry bubbles, bye-bye.